I let them know it's a different garment. Let them know it's a different fabric. No pesto, a different sauce. When it comes from my lips, it's a different gloss. Yeah, I'm polished, the bar solid. Long journey, I'm built for mileage. Fontaine when it come to trotting. The easy way is to go and support me. The hard way, trying to stop me. I don't come in bulk, you can't crop me. I'm too fly, you can't crop me. My hair long, but I ain't locking. Shorty bad, but she can't lock me. I met too many that said they got me. My heart broken, damn, they got me. Tables turn, I'm a hashtag. You a free agent and you mad. Summertime, you be teed up. In the wintertime, you be sad. Realize you shouldn't have let me go, so when I come up, you talk mad trash.
Souls of Thought. Disclaimer. This live stream is for entertainment and commentary purposes only. Statements made are opinions, satire, or hypothetical discussion and should not be interpreted as factual claims. We are not journalists, attorneys, or professionals. We are reacting to publicly available information. No statements should be construed as accusations or assertions of wrongdoing. By viewing this content, you acknowledge that you are responsible for your own interpretations. Viewer discretion is advised.
Are you making another beat, Daddy?
Yeah.
And Genius is my dad.
Man, loyalty off the strength. Squad with me off the strength.
Let's go.
If you with your people, let it be known.
Loyalty off the strength.
Yeah.
Squad got me off the strength. Going crazy off the strength.
Yeah.
We ain't playing off the strength. My team strong.
She with her ladies off the strength.
My team strong.
She with her ladies off the strength. Talk.
She showing coochie like Boosie, sliding on her like the Tusi. They saying beggars can't be choosy. I ain't begging, so I'm choosy. Way I'm seasoned, I'm a movie. In the bed, it's unruly. Getting high first, coolie. I'm a dog, no cue, she a cutie. I'm leaving my prints when I smack on her booty. I'm all in her space, she like the intrusion. Got a role play, she like the illusion. On the other side, it's a squad when I'm moving. Uber Excel, whatever we doing. New clientele, business maneuvers. I'm cool with some lords and I'm cool with some hoovers. Come to the court, they call me a shooter. Come to the guns, I'm calling a shooter. Better call it a truce before I call a conclusion. I'm from the city where it ain't no snoozing. I'm from the city where it ain't no lacking. It was so fast, that's how it happened. Put a hit on your mind, I got hits on my mind. B-class could write a hit on the nap. I'm making a list, I got hits on my mind. Where I'm from, somebody dying if we cap. Loyalty off the strength. Squad got me off the strength. Going crazy off the strength. We ain't playing off the strength. My team strong.
She with her ladies off the strength.
My team strong.
She with her ladies off the strength.
I love my brother off the strength of that, but we was in the vacant lot, he grabbed the bat. We was in the vacant lot, I grabbed the ball, numbers looking wrong, so we had to haul. But we came back. You heard the story, West Adam Street. West Side babies cooking up. This Mike and Kobe if they hooking up. I think of Kobe when I'm looking up. I'm the one, never shooken up. They shooting. These bars make you look me up. I give it thought, you don't think enough. The way I float is like I got the touch. The way I gloat is like I'm narcissistic. The way I back it up, then it's diminished way I'm acting up. Women see me up, say I'm acting stuck. Dudes got me honest when they acting buck. Always quacking, you daffy duck. When it's cracking, mighty duck. Got the sticks, slap your puck. Think he better, match him up. Hard shell, but you lack the guts. Late rounds, tag your gut. Walk you down, back you up. All I know is that I'm with the squad, and you better be with it.
I'm making a push. Yeah, I've been trying to turn the corner for a minute. Finally feel like I'm at the intersection. I'm talking about, you gotta turn it on in the playoffs.
Yeah. Came in without it, can't leave without it. Tired of being doubted, I'm trying to push. Wasn't getting no attention, worked so hard, they ain't had no choice but to look. 10 years in, still getting warm, built strong, you ain't have what it took.
Real life. You know if you built for the ride or not.
Yeah. They said I wasn't enough, still hear their voices in my head saying that I wasn't good. Now I see them out, look them in their eyes, they looking back and everything understood. Nike Tech, white ones, all winter, black diamond watch, they know that I'm good.
Classic.
I'm about to push like a broom. Boy, it's a sweep like a broom. What's understood gotta be explained when you the smartest person in the room. To my squad, I'm Gary V. B-class, don't phone home to check in, but I inspire like E.T. Yeah, I want it bad as I can breathe. You don't know the half about the team. By accident, got in the league. That's my cuzzo, I mean. Automatic from the 3. I'm automatic on the beat.
What's good? Everybody, welcome in. 333s are on deck, man. Y'all already see what's going on. It's Sessions with Souls tonight. We got something new that we're going to start unpacking here. I am also 1/5 of the Raw Society Coalition, but tonight you can call me the founder. You can call me the doctor. You can call me whatever you want to prescribe it to be tonight, but we're going to get it on tonight, man. I want to also give you guys some background on where this all stemmed from before we get into the session tonight with Souls. So throughout my journey here on this platform we call YouTube, everybody has their niches, everybody has their creativity, everybody has their gifts. And a lot of times our gifts get overshadowed by our lack of understanding. And that's one of the things that I wanted to be able to display. Sometimes it's hard to display that in the comments. Sometimes it's hard to display that over live. Sometimes, depending on if you're on a panel. So, what's the best way to be able to say what you want when you want and not be interrupted? Is to do it solo. So, tonight and every Sunday night, we will be doing sessions with souls. Tonight, I will be using content from our very own The Classic Codes, better known as B Class. So make sure that y'all tune in to the Classic Codes. This content, again, will be coming from Classic Codes. With that being said, tonight you guys will witness the first ever YouTube content production. Let me say that again. Tonight will be a production. This is like none other. Every section, every segment will let you know what's going on, why we moving, what we're doing. But before I get started, I do want to say shout out to Sonny. Sonny is in the chat. Sonny gave me the permission to utilize her as my first session with souls. Again, tonight is my opinions, guys. Tonight is my opinions. I'm going to play a video for you guys tonight that's going to break down to you what Sessions with Souls is all about, why it was created, and then we're going to get into the content. But I want you guys to understand that keep the chat popping, have your conversations in the chat, but we will not get to the chat until the end, until the last production of this content tonight. But I want you guys to ask any questions you may have and make sure that, you know, at the end of this content, this session with souls tonight, that you guys are able to utilize and ask me any questions you like. For those who don't know, I have a very vast, over 15 years of experience in the mental health career field. That's where my education is in. That's what I did while I did 20 years in the military. I had over 40,000 clients, probably more than that, even in the deployed environments as well. So when I talk about content, I look at content in a very different spectrum. I know a lot of times people take the comments that I say in the comments and they run with it or they overthink it. So Sessions with Souls is going to allow you guys to see my brain, how it works, how it operates in a respectful manner. So again, shout out to Classic for the content. Shout out to Sonny for allowing me to utilize you as the first session with souls. And again, tonight, anything I say has nothing to do with Sonny. This is Norris's view. Yeah, Norris, Souls, whatever you want to call me, the founder. This is my view tonight. It has no pull on Sonny. It has no pull on the people who are on the panel. This is all about how I see content. Again, it won't be disrespectful, but I want you guys to see what I heard and what I see in content. So instead of me rambling at you guys, we're going to get this production started. And we're going to start off with the breakdown of what Sessions with Souls is all about. So everybody hang tight and listen to Souls come to you about the Sessions with Souls.
Welcome to Sessions with Souls. This is the space where we take content from emotional triage to critical diagnosis, where we slow things down, examine the symptoms, challenge the narratives, and unpack what's really being said and why it's being received the way it is. This isn't therapy. This isn't clinical advice. These are my perspectives, my professional lens, my lived experience, and my honest observations. Here, we don't react. We assess. We interpret. We contextualize. Because content doesn't exist in isolation. It lives inside culture, emotion, bias, and intention. So settle in and rest in the peace of knowing. Content always has context. Let's begin the session.
So our first session, you guys are going to hear the same content twice tonight. The first session is going to be what we call a triage. For those who don't know about the mental health world or the medical world in general, we're going to start off with a triage. A triage is a quick assessment. It's a quick surface level assessment to assess for risks, dangers, anything of that nature. Again, this is just a quick triage that we're going to go over first, but you are going to hear the content twice tonight, okay? So you're going to hear the first context, and it's going to be the triage. where I allow you guys and myself to listen. I will be taking notes as I'm listening to this content. I'm going to give you guys surface level answers to what you are hearing. And then after the triage, we'll talk about the next step. Hang on to your chairs, guys. This is Sessions with Souls.
Triage isn't treatment, it's the gateway. Before we diagnose it, before we debate it, before we defend it, we triage it. At Sessions with Souls, triage is the moment we pause and ask, is this content harmful? Is it helpful? Or is it just noise dressed up as depth? We don't react, we assess. We don't absorb, we evaluate. We don't prescribe, we prioritize. Because not every viral moment deserves your mental space, and not every loud voice deserves clinical weight. Triage is where clarity begins. Welcome to the first stage of the breakdown.
That is problematic. And I have sons, right? Mm-hmm. I think that is problematic. I think when young men do not see a male presence in a household, it creates a lot of conflict. And I speak from my own lived experience, right? Mm-hmm. It creates a lot of conflict in that young man because he is like, here is a woman heading a household that atypically goes to what I have been taught and told, but have not seen should be a man. So when I get to an age, right? When they get to that age, they smelling themselves and they don't, y'all know what's happening that between that 10, 12 on up into your early 20s, you just smell, you don't know the wind blow. You know what I'm saying, Phil.
Yeah, we get it.
A lot of men do not, what I saw my own son, I'm speaking from my experience, right? As a mom, there was a lot of contradictions. He was like, this is hypocritical and oxymoron. You telling me to be a man, but you're not a man. So how can you tell me to be a man? Exactly. It doesn't compute. So when he got to that age and he's now fighting within himself because he's like, my mom is telling me this is what a man looks like, what it should look like anyway, right? This is what I should be doing, these things, but you're a woman. And my son and I, we've had these very candid conversations and we actually fell out for about a good year because he said, I felt like I had to fight for my position to be a man because you wouldn't let me be that. And I was like, I didn't see it that way, right? I gave him enough rope. I let him have his actions and consequences. I thought I was not a helicopter parent by any stretch of the imagination, but it didn't matter what I did. It's how he felt. It's what he saw, what he experienced, and what he had to deal with. So when I say to you, I understand that sentiment when they say women are in a lot of ways, especially in a single parent household that's headed by women, you are really chumping your sons in a lot of different ways because a lot of these women, especially when they have a disdain for men, they are going to raise their sons to be the man that they quote unquote want, right? And I say want, not need, want, right? So they're gonna say, oh, well, you should do this and you should do that, and blah, 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 right? They spew that into them and then turn around and talk shit about his daddy. I'm gonna speak candidly, so I'm gonna cuss a little bit now. You talk shit about the boy's dad, then tell him how to be the man that you allege his father wasn't, but yet you couldn't keep his father, but now you're gonna tell him how to be the man that another woman wants? Doesn't make any sense. Oh, y'all tell me, does that make any sense?
It doesn't. And that's the reason why I don't coach anymore. I used to coach football and I would deal with a lot of kids that
seen. I feel that.
Okay.
So when if there is something, we chilling. Like, what are we doing here?
But it's not a certain dominance. If you said, listen, it's about an understanding. You remember when 2K said it's the thought that something will happen. It's being understood, right? A man has to set his dominance at the beginning. And I have to say it like that because women don't understand it any other way. You understand it. You may not think it. You understand it, right? You said you respect your husband. These women out here do not respect men and their position as leaders. They don't. And I'm just going to speak this way from what I've seen, right? In this spectrum and in this dating field as of now, right? Women do not respect men as leaders anymore. They don't. So now men have to be they have to exert themselves in a way that comes off as dominant. And when I say you have to stop giving the option and make the statement, listen, I tell people I state things, I don't question them, right? I don't ask questions, I'm stating the thing because this is what you shall do, not what you want to do, right? And that's what I think men need to establish at the beginning. And it doesn't have to come up as dominance, establishing dominance or teabagging, or y'all think that this thing of submissiveness, all of a sudden you ain't gonna be able to do nothing. And oh my God, as a woman. And I think women need to understand what interdependence is, right? I don't need my man, right? But I need him. right? I don't need him there for every little thing, but I need him for the things that I need him for, right? Does that make sense? I just want to make sure I'm tracking. It's not wants and needs, right? I need him, but I need him, right? I need him for certain things. I don't need him for everything, right? So my man needs to understand that if he has to go to work 5,000 miles away from where I am, that I am not going to not be able to function with him not being there. He needs to understand that I can handle that. This is called interdependence. I can function with him here. I can function with him out here, right? If he gives me a directive and he's 5,000 miles away, he understands that if he gives me that directive, I'm going to follow it because I respect his leadership. I understand why the directive is being given. These women say, he ain't going to tell me what to do. I do what I want. I don't need no man. And what you're telling the man is that if I make my own money, I could do it myself. I could buy my own car. You know that Jill Scott song, I can kill the spider over my bed, blah, 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 blah. I said, no, I can't. I can't kill the spider. Yeah, I can make my own money, but I still need a man. Because if you take all of those things away from a man, you say, I don't need him. I don't need him to pay my bills. I don't need him to do this. I don't need him to do that. And then when he just use you as a bust down, you want to get mad and say he toxic and he ain't shit and he a dog. But you told him you ain't need him from nothing but some dick. Pardon my French, but that's what you told him. I'm sorry I'm going off on a tangent, but I'm going to round it back. I digress. I apologize. I'm going to bring this back. Men need to establish they are the leader up front. You don't get to tell me where to spend my money. I spend my money where I think being fit. So if I take you to McDonald's, get the broken sheen McFlurry and be quiet. And if you don't want that, it was a pleasure meeting you. I will move on to the next one who will. Because I assure you, it is a woman out there who will sit with this man at a sticky table at McDonald's versus pay $500 for some mediocre puss at the end of a date. Am I wrong?
What's Marcel, what's going on?
Filet mignon is, let's say,
to help someone that I thought
you were like, I don't know what a corn nugget is, and I just want to try it. Okay, corn nuggets are not the main dish. The filet mignon is. So when you meet a woman, your qualifier should be set up off of, is she filet mignon or is she 859? Hey, big head, what you doing? That's how you.
They all, hey, big head, what you doing?
But if you look at a woman,
I'm not.
But what I'm saying to you is that filet mignon will get invested into, right? Because filet mignon shows qualities of being someone there for the long term. And you can qualify her by a big button and smile. BBD been telling me for 30 years not to trust a big button and smile. But y'all keep running out here after me. Mm-hmm. So when I told my sons, the one you ain't serious about, 759 Dusk, the girl you call that Dusk is your back scratcher. You got an itch that need to be scratched. She is nothing else. I don't need to know her name. I don't want to know her name. Right. Listen, we had very candid conversations. There were conversations with thing 1, thing 2, thing 3, thing 4. Those are the corn nuggets. Those are the back scratchers. Those are the ones you don't tell me her name because they are irrelevant, right? Because the investment into them is only to scratch your back. The filet mignon is the one you do spend the time with. She gets the flowers. She gets Valentine's. She gets all of that stuff, right? Because
I'm trying to tell you, I'd rather have a ribeye than the filet mignon is all I'm saying.
Well, whatever kind of beef you choose. I'm just saying to you.
I get the reference of the cut. But I'm just saying, ask your sons this question: if they ever got hurt by a woman,
of course they have.
Exactly. So your advice basically is going to be looked at differently once we get hurt. Once a man gets hurt, it's like you were saying. Once we put our finger in an electrical socket, we ain't gonna do it again.
Right. And don't get me wrong.
So I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong. I'm just saying we're gonna listen out of respect for my mother. I'll listen to you. Okay, mom, sure. Yep. Mm-hmm. And then go about my business. And I'm not going to take
what I always tell my son, and I tell anybody. Trust but verify.
I'm listening to you. I think what you're saying in theory is right. I'm just saying when a man deals with a woman, he ain't typically, most men, not all, as you get older, you start to get wiser. Classic's a little bit different because, he has stronger convictions, but some of us men are weak to the flesh. Some of us don't have that ability. And you get some gush and that girl's telling you what it is.
Amen.
Does that make sense? But why, as a woman, would you waste your time knowing that?
Who's saying if I'm getting paid for it, I'm fed and I'm paid for it? Why am I going to waste my time? I'm speaking as the contrarian right now. If I'm getting my belly full and my pockets with a little coin in it, how am I wasting my time? I'm asking you as a man.
Well, you're actually wasting his time and you're wasting his resources. I'm
not wasting his resources. Not for her, for him, right? Because he has to live with that. He has to make sure that she fits within and that she is not going to come in and derail his purpose, right? And I led with that. You have to have a purpose. So when I advised my sons, it wasn't on telling them the type of man their father wasn't. It wasn't on telling them that they should go out and just appease to a woman and her wants. It wasn't that. I absolutely told them, you need to understand what it is you need versus what you want. You want a cookie, you don't need it, right?
But this
you
is
need
so,
water. So
right.
that was a very different conversation than I think most mothers would have with their sons. And I gave them the ugly of women. So there's that.
So this topic actually came up on It Is What It Is, but don't really do that.
Oh,
don't mind me. I'm eating. I'm sorry. I'm eating with my mouth full.
Oh man.
You know,
Yeah,
can I say this really quick about the parenting aspect? I'm point. And so if I always say, we are,
to Kira's point, I may not have been taught a thing. Like my mother didn't say, do this, do this, do this. But when I got into a relationship, the only way I understood conflict resolution was by cussing somebody out and fighting. Right? So when I am in this relationship, and mind you, when my father was gone, I then become the subject of my mother's, right? Because the primary abuser is now gone. This is 20 years of her life. So who do you think gets subjected to the abuse now? Right? So now we have a different dynamic. So now she's become the abuser, I'm the abusee. And now I get out into this world. Now, mind you, my mother taught me to cook, clean. We gonna get up on a Saturday, we cut grass, we do all that. These things I was directly taught, but indirectly, right? I was also taught, I don't need no man. Screw him. Let him deal with all his stuff and all his things on his own. My mother abandoned my father in his alcoholism, right? There's a lot of things I had to learn after the fact. But one of those big things I did learn is that my mother abandoned him in his alcoholism. What I saw and thought was this horrible abuse was actually my father's only way of knowing how to communicate his feelings, right? I can't say it because she ain't listening to me. So, so I'm a shaker. All right. So when I got out into the world, I have now been subjected to this. I didn't necessarily pull an abusive man, but I became the abuser in a sense. And that's why I asked Sneaker P, the traumas that your mother went through when she was in that state, right? In foster care, having to survive, having to do that. Do you not think that she took on that role when she got into that relationship with your father? Because she's always been in a state of survival, right?
All right, so we're gonna stop there. We could listen to almost to the end. Shout out to Classic again for the 5 hours of content right there. I only chose to use like the last 15 to 20 minutes, and I was moving around so that you guys can hear what Sonny was initially saying. Again, I'm going to provide you guys what I'm hearing on the surface right now. Just the surface, has nothing to do with going deep. We'll get there later. But this is what I'm hearing on the surface. And I could be wrong. This is Soul's perspective. This is a Sessions with Souls. If you went to any other mental health clinic, not every provider is going to diagnose the person with the same diagnosis. You can hear the same verbiage. You can hear the same language. We all perceive and we all take in information differently. That's why I really wanted to do this show every Sunday, because I wanted to be able to articulate my thoughts without being interrupted and without having to worry about trying to defend my thoughts, but more about like what I'm seeing on the surface. So when I initially listened to Sonny, and I took notes, guys, so it's a lot here, right? So I took notes, and this is just surface level listening, right? She gave us a breakdown of kind of like a biopsychosocial. We know she grew up initially in a 2-parent home. There was some trauma in the home. Also, she's a single mother. She raised sons. They didn't really have a male presence at the time. She kind of took on that role. Some of the key things that stood out was some of the things that she was saying that, she understood that she wasn't a man, but as a mom, she was still giving advice to her sons. Like she was still providing guidance. The next thing too, that kind of went into after she went through her breakdown, she talked about the fallout that her and her son had due to him not feeling a certain way, him not receiving what he thought he should receive in a mother-son relationship. That's what I'm going to call it initially. And then going on to there is she started to talk about, when it comes to like needs and wants. she broke that down from her perspective as well. Then when you keep going throughout the content, if you don't know Sunny, you would have thought Sunny was a very overly aggressive female, right? She said things about like setting a man setting his dominance. She talked about women in today's dating world not respecting men, control, aggressive, straightforward, men making all decisions, just making the decisions, showing that he can lead. Again, she went into a need but not a need. Also, just simply, she was talking about the difference between being directive as a man. Like men should be more directive. They should talk more direct about what needs to happen. She gave some examples there as well, you know, like going to restaurants, things of that nature, how there's a woman out there who would, you know, if you take her to a sticky table at a restaurant, she'll sit down and eat with that man. And there's some women who won't. Then we go on to talk about, she talked a little bit about how do you teach leadership is one of the things that stood out to me, which I'll break down deeper in the next section of this video tonight. Is some of the things that she was saying. I wanted to ask questions. Like if you notice in Classics chat, I was even asking Sunny, like, where did the shift happen? I asked Kiera the same question as well. And then I also asked Sunny, could I use this content for my new show? Like I already knew that this was what I wanted to use when I got into this Sessions with Souls. Then it goes on to I started having some basic questions as I was listening to her. You know, why did you allow your sons to have more than one female? How does a mom and son fall out for a year? How does that look? And how can you be a teacher without ever learning? Those were some of the big things that stood out. And then one of the big things that you're going to see me really talk about when we move into the next section is actually going to be her father being an abuser and being an addict, right? Because again, these are my opinions. It's not her opinions. These are my opinions, my thoughts. I don't know anything other than the content that I'm reviewing here. But I'm going to talk to you guys about some things that might not always be seen because we're not looking deep. We're just listening to surface level. We're just kind of having conversations on the platform. But her father being an addict and an abuser can play a major role in a lot of things. And so I want you guys to really think about that as we come back, because we are going to replay that content, okay? We're going to replay that content once we come back. But this is just a triage, right? This was just a quick on the surface. So if I had to judge Sunny on the surface, this is me not knowing her, not knowing anything, first time listening, I would have looked at Sunny as a woman who seems to have all the answers, but no guidance. That's how I would have initially looked at it. Again, this is no judgment. This is just me on the surface. If I wanted to put some clickbait in the comments, I would have said this is a very aggressive African-American female who didn't have relationships that worked out. And then she had to then take on the leadership of a home. And from that point on, as she became the leader, she established what she felt dominance looked like to be able to raise her children. That's my synopsis. That's how I would have looked at it from the surface level. So again, you guys are welcome to chat in the chat, but that's my surface level of what I heard. Again, this is just me quickly going over it, listening to it, and that's what we would call a triage. But now we're going to move into the intake, right? So the intake is going to be a more in-depth session, and the Soul Session with Souls is going to explain to you guys a little bit more about the intake.
The intake, Sessions with Souls Triage asks, is this urgent? Intake asks, what's really going on here? The intake is where we slow the moment down and gather the full story. Not the headline, not the clip, not the viral reaction, the full context.
I'm lucky to be alive.
Yeah, my mama had me rated for a 30.
Fight for my position to be a man because you wouldn't let me be that. And I was like,
she rated me to be the nigga she wanted,
but have not seen should be a man. So when I get to an age, right, when they get to that age, they smelling themselves and you know, they don't, y'all know what's happening. That between that 10, 12 on up into your early 20s, you just smell, you don't know the wind blow. You know what I'm saying, Phil.
Yeah, we get it.
A lot of men do not, what I saw my own son, I'm speaking from my experience, right? As a mom, there was a lot of contradictions. He was like, this is hypocritical and oxymoron. Is you telling me to be a man, but you're not a man. So how can you tell me to be a man? Exactly. It doesn't compute. So when he got to that age and he's now fighting within himself, because he's like, my mom is telling me this is what a man looks like, what it should look like anyway, right? This is what I should be doing, these things, but you're a woman. And my son and I, we've had these very candid conversations, and we actually fell out for about a good year because he said, I felt like I had to fight for my position to be a man because you wouldn't let me be that. And I was like, I didn't see it that way, right? I gave him enough rope. I let him have his actions and consequences. I thought I was not a helicopter parent by any stretch of the imagination, but it didn't matter what I did. It's how he felt. It's what he saw, what he experienced, and what he had to deal with. So when I say to you, I understand that sentiment when they say women are in a lot of ways, especially in a single parent household that's headed by women, you are really chumping your sons in a lot of different ways, because a lot of these women, especially when they have a disdain for men, they are going to raise their sons to be the man that they quote unquote want, right? And I say want, not need, want, right? So they're gonna say, oh, well, you should do this and you should do that, and blah, 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 right? They spew that into them and then turn around and talk shit about his daddy. I'm gonna speak candidly, so I'm gonna cuss a little bit now. Mm-hmm. You talk shit about the boy's dad, then tell him how to be the man that you allege his father wasn't, but yet you couldn't keep his father, but now you're gonna tell him how to be the man that another woman wants? Doesn't make any sense. Oh, y'all tell me, does that make any sense?
It doesn't. And that's the reason why I don't coach anymore. I used to
go to do anything, right? She ain't paying for it. And if she gonna pay for it, let her make all the decisions in the world. But when you're paying for it, you tell her where you're going. And I'm not saying that to be, look, ladies in the chat, don't come for me. I'm saying that because a woman is going to respect your leadership if you state things to her and not give her the options. Because once you give a woman the keys to the car, she is not going to give them back. She's just not. I'm telling you, as a woman.
I have to respectfully disagree. I have to disagree.
That's fine.
I have to disagree. I get what you're saying.
Speak this way from what I've seen, right, in this spectrum and in this dating field as of now, right? Women do not respect men as leaders anymore. They don't. So now men have to be they have to exert themselves in a way that comes off as dominant. And when I say you have to stop giving the option and make the statement, listen, I tell people I state things, I don't question them, right? I don't ask questions. I'm stating the thing because this is what you shall do, not what you want to do, right? And that's what I think men need to establish at the beginning. And it doesn't have to come up as dominance, establishing dominance or teabagging, or y'all think that this thing of submissiveness, all of a sudden you ain't gonna be able to do nothing, and oh my God, as a woman. And I think women need to understand what interdependence is, right? I don't need my man, right? But I need him, right? I don't need him there for every little thing, but I need him for the things that I need him for, right? Does that make sense?
So we're gonna stop here first, right? So now that we're in the intake section, right, it gets a little bit more prevalent of the things that she's saying, right? So a lot of the words, a lot of the tonality that you're hearing, a lot of things that are starting to occur, it starts to make sense, right? And again, this is my perception. This is the way I perceive the information that I'm receiving. And I don't know who she was mentioning at the beginning when she talked about like women bashing the father. So I don't have all the details. So I'm not going to assume on those points. I'm going to assume that she was always positive about her children's fathers. And then they got nothing but positivity from her on that end. But then also we already have listened to that she experienced abuse in the household, right? As a kid in her upbringing. So the first question I would have asked, or the first thing I would have posed, is I wanted to know, where did the shift start, right? Because sometimes we get leadership and fear and we combine the two, right? Because a lot of times when people are trying to establish dominance, that's the word that we're going to use tonight, is sometimes that dominance comes from the fear that was once upon you, right? Because all the positive things, because this is what really caught my eye about Sunny, and shout out to Sunny, man. I really enjoy her talking. I enjoy her content. what really stood out to me about Sunny was how positive she was towards men having control, but growing up in a environment where the man that would have been her example, his control was uncontrollable. So let me say that again if that doesn't make sense for you guys. So when I'm listening to Sunny, Sunny was very positive about men having control, being the leader, establishing dominance. But the biggest thing is having that control and being a leader. But when I think back to like the biopsychosocial part of it, when her upbringing and the things that she witnessed, how did she know what control or leadership looked like from a man who the man that she would have looked up to was very uncontrollable? So then I started to take the context of this is like, man, I think what Sunny really experiences is Sunny respects men so much now because Sunny's seen what an uncontrollable man looks like. The fear of dealing with an uncontrollable man, that could be substance abuse, that could be physical abuse, that could be emotional abuse. I think once people witness the worst side of what a man can look like, you now have a reverence for men, but it sometimes can come out of fear. Not just what you're seeing in society, but what you actually grew up in. And so that's what I really started to think about as I was listening to the content that night. Like I literally stopped putting anything in the comments and I just started really processing everything that was going on. Because even in the midst of her losing a year with her son as a relationship, was that beneficial? Was that something that he needed? Was it a moment where Sunny seeing that she was losing control even in that relationship, where as the mother to a child, in some form or matter, you would have some form of dominance? It's a lot of questions that come from this, right? That's why I said I'm just breaking it down from my perspective. If I had her up here, I would be asking a lot of open-ended questions at this point, because I would need to see how did she finally get to the conclusion of how she should then raise her sons so that they can be men. Because her example of a man, from what we got, that's it. I'm not judging her situation, none of that. I'm just saying from what we received, her mom grew up, when she grew up with her mom and her life and in her home, they experienced a very uncontrollable male figure. So at that point, regardless how life might shift for her, what did she start to look as control? And then she even mentioned as well that when the abuser left, that attention then came to her from her mother. And so these are questions that I was like going through my head at the time, right? Because during the content, everybody was kind of just speaking surface level. You know, it was kind of like, I'm gonna judge this about men, I'm gonna judge this about women, I'm gonna talk about this in the dating world and this and that of that nature. And Sonny, I will definitely let you address it, and you can definitely come up once we get towards the end, because I do want people to be able to hear your version of what happened. But this is just my opportunity in Sessions with Souls, is to process like what was going through my head. So those are some of the things that I initially thought about when I was listening to this content. I was initially thinking about, how does a woman then raise her sons to be men when the example that she would have had was very uncontrollable? So then we continue to move on. You continue to move on through the content. And this is why I also brought up in the comments earlier on that damaged goods are not redeemable. And it was certain people who were pushing back. And like I was saying, that regardless how we want to look at things, anything that happens to us negatively in life, yes, we are resilient. Yes, we bounce back, but you will never be the same quality of product that you were before you encountered that issue. It's no way possible. We all are resilient. We all bounce back, but you won't be the same version that came into that trauma, if that makes sense, right? So if you grew up as a kid and you experienced abuse in the home, your view of a home is now skewed. It doesn't matter that you watch Leave It to Beaver. It doesn't matter that you're watching shows with celebrities who have successful relationships. None of that matters, because at the end of the day, you are still semi-damaged, right? You have a surgery on something, yeah, you can bounce back. You might feel stronger than ever, but the integrity of that area that had a surgery put on is still going to always have some form of tension. It's always going to have some things that you just won't be able to do like you originally did. So those were the things that I was thinking about throughout the content. And I think Sonny, and I want to shout out Kira as well. They did a very good job pushing back on each other, but being respectful. And then when you continue to go on to this, I started to have more questions on how can you teach someone if you never learned? Like, I didn't understand how. That's why I kept asking the question, where did the shift happen? Where did the shift happen? Because the respect that Sonny has for men, if I only knew her backstory, I would say it was impossible for her to even stand up for men, but she does. So somewhere in there, she had a shift in her judgment, in her thinking process. And that could have been the information maybe her son gave back to her on the back end, things of that nature. But once you are entrenched in drama, you will never be the same. It's impossible. Everything that you do from that point on, you will always be in the defense of not being put into that moment of vulnerability. So then it had me start to question other things, right? As a mother, she started giving guidance to her son, but then the guidance to her son, in my opinion, was like, why would you not tell your son not to have more than one woman? Why would you want him to even start life out with not having what we would consider like sustainability in relationships, right? So those are questions that all came into my head. But the biggest thing is I'm going to continue to mention is Sonny was a witness of fallout. She was a witness in fallout as a child with the mother and father, and then she was a witness of her own fallout with her son and herself. With those two things intertwining, I have to give her nothing but credit and kudos for the respect that she still has for men today. Like, that has to be applauded, because from what she experienced, you would think that she probably would have been just very salty towards men. But somewhere again, which she'll be able to speak about it this afternoon, is to explain where that shift happened. And I appreciate everyone who's in the comments. I'm going to read them towards the end. But the biggest thing is that's what I got from that. And what I'm going to do now is, again, this is just the intake portion. This is just me telling you guys my in-depth process or the way that I was like thinking about it. Like, if I was on that panel with Classic that night, everybody else probably would have left, because I would have had so many open-ended questions for Sonny, because I have to get to the root of how did she get from where she was to where she is today, because it's very commendable. Like, I'm giving her nothing but her roses, because for her to be able to have the understanding throughout the night, she continued to say, hey, I'm going to let the men speak because I want to hear what the men have to say. For someone who probably experienced a lot of negative men, and I'm speculating, right? I don't know if she was married. I don't know if the kids' fathers, I don't know any of that. So this is all speculation. So I'm just thinking that somebody who somewhere down the line, those relationships didn't work out, but she doesn't have a tainted view today. So it's very interesting to me, especially with her being pretty much around my age or older, like with her being older, not being tainted, being able to be a respectful woman, and being able to be a woman who understands what men are looking for, or at least her perception of what men are looking for, I thought was very intriguing. So I really want to say thank you to Sunny. I am going to let her come up if she like. I will drop the link in the chat for you, Sunny. But that was like my first moments there. And before I go into the content deposition, I have two chats here that I'm going to read. Classic said, "I totally agree, Souls. I'm probably changed by trauma. The old me wasn't the best version of me for me," which is shout out to Classic. And then shout out to Black Mona Lisa. She said, "I think people have to make conscious decisions to know that all men are not the same," which is very easy to say, but our subconscious takes over when we're in flight or fight. Sunny has a lot of fight in her. It doesn't look like she flighted a lot. It doesn't look like she ran away from the things that would have impacted her. So, but I shout out to Lisa too. I do agree with that. With that being said, I feel that your subconscious still affects your conscious decisions as well. So we're going to move into the final part before I allow Sunny to come up here and I drop the link. We're going to move into the content disposition. Here we go.
Then content disposition is judgment with discipline. This is where Sessions with Souls separates itself. We don't just react to content, we triage it, we intake it, then we decide what it deserves.
So after hearing everything I heard prior to me bringing Sunny up on the stage tonight, what I initially got out of the conversation with Sunny is that how do I want to break this down for y'all? Because it was very insightful, very, very insightful. And I'm going to probably be doing a few takes from this 5-hour interview. It's a bunch of people in here who expressed a lot of things with their upbringing and the things that they experienced. So I am going to probably review more people. But if I had to break down this session with Sunny, and I'll be able to do it probably a little bit more in depth at when she comes up, is first of all, was there ever good moments with her father? Somewhere along the line, either her father was once an amazing guy, or somewhere even in the midst of the trauma that her mother provided, either her mother provided a male figure who was able to show them what it looks like, or Sunny seeked out male figures who looked like what she wanted them to look like, for her to still have the respect that she has for men today, like the reverence that she has, like the respect she has. I'm telling you guys, you won't see that, like that respect level that she had to allow men to speak, to allow people to land, to not just push back to only hear her own opinion, but to hear others' opinion. That says a lot about her. Because that is not something that's very easy. So if I had to get her a final content disposition, I would give her, and again, guys, these content dispositions are made up words. I'm not going out the DSM. I'm not diagnosing people with mental health issues, none of that. I'm just giving people a brief synopsis of what I hear, what goes to my brain. I would say that Sunny deals with a lot of grief. And grief has 5 stages to it. And sometimes you can stay in stages for years. Sometimes you can never leave stages. Sometimes you will leave a stage and come back to a stage. So I would initially say, if I had to give her any type of content disposition, it would be she deals with grief, but she allows her grief to grow her, and her grief is not what roots her. So that would be my content disposition for Sunny. And nobody can speak on Sunny better than Sunny. So Sunny is here. So we're going to bring Sunny up on the stage. Sunny, let me change the view real quick. And let's see here. How are you, ma'am? How are you? Let me get a better one. Let's see here. How are we going to do this? I don't know why I got us as different shapes. How you doing tonight, Miss Sunny?
I'm good. How are y'all?
We're doing well. Everybody's doing well. So I would like you to be able to, the floor is yours first, and then I'll ask any questions that might spawn up from what you have to say. But I want to say thank you, first of all, for allowing me to even use your form of content for my first sessions with Souls for the mental health content breakdown. So I want to say thank you. And I also want to give you your roses because, again, the respect and reverence that you have for men, regardless of what you experience, is very commendable. So I just want to say thank you, and the floor is yours, ma'am.
All right, appreciate that.
Yes,
Really quickly, there's like an echo. I don't know if it's on my end or
I'll
if
mute.
it's
Let me mute. So let me know if you hear. I'm about to mute.
okay. Okay, I think it's gone. Can you hear me? Okay. So as always, thank you so much for having me up. It was a bit eye-opening for me. I a lot of times don't even watch like the content when when the replay, it takes me a little bit of time because I'm like, oh my God, is that really me? But oh man, I don't know. I guess ask the questions. I would like to not kind of go off into these tangents. I would like to really address the questions specifically. So wherever you want to start, I'm willing to start there with you.
Awesome. Sounds good. And just so you don't have the echo, if you don't mind muting, I'll ask the question and then I'll mute myself. So awesome. So first, starting off, I would like to hear a little bit more about your upbringing when it came to your relationship with your father. Could you express to us if there was ever any positive moments that you seen prior to his fight with addiction? And then also after you answer about your father, if your mother is still with us or if you still have a relationship with your mother today, when did that shift happen?
Okay. So I did have a relationship with my dad. My parents separated when I was 8. So, and a lot of my memories of my father were very positive, believe it or not. The fight that I saw, or the disdain or the abuse for that happened in my household, didn't necessarily happen to me and my sibling. It was more between my parents, right? So it wasn't like my father, took his frustrations or his angst out on me and my sibling. He took it mostly out on my mom. So there's that. So when my father left, like I was explaining to you all in the video, I was only 8. My sibling is 6 years older than me. So she was what 14, something like that. So I used to hear this all the time when my mom would get mad. You just like your daddy. You just like your daddy, right? So the things in that short span of time, in 8 years, that I saw my mother do to my father, she began to do that to me as I got older, right? So it was like, oh, you're just like your daddy. I'm doing something, right? She gives me an instruction to do something. I'm doing it. Then it's not good enough. Then she gives me another instruction to do another thing. And it's like, okay, I'm doing it. Then if I don't do it in her mind the way she wants me to do it, it becomes a problem. So it's like you're now kind of, I always say it's like you picking a fight, but it's like, why are you picking a fight with me? I'm just a kid, right? So as we move forward and I'm getting older, right? The 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 conflict between my mother and I got so bad. I'm about to overshare a whole lot, but it's okay because I feel like if people can learn from my history, right, then I feel like a job well done. If I reached 1 or a million, I'm okay with that. So I'm gonna overshare. So when I hit 13, right, my mother was just determined that I was just unbearable. And she sent me off to a group home for 3 years. She signed away her parental rights. She says, I'm not going to fight you and feed you. So I'm going to send you away. So let me put this into context. So I have 8 years with my father. She calls the police. She sends, pulls out restraining orders. She's doing things to remove him from the house. Now he's gone. I'm here. And for the last 8 years up until this point, what do I hear my mom tell me? You're just like your daddy. She goes and picks fights. She goes and she does things and she says that I'm being disrespectful. And she tells people about how, I'm uncontrollable. I'm doing all of this stuff and whatever the case may be, right? And then she finds a way to get me out of the house. So if you think about that, I am now thinking that maybe my dad isn't this horrible person that she has now told us he was. So I now have a different little perspective, right? I want to believe what she says because what she went through was horrendous, right? I was there. You know, my dad did wild stuff, right? I saw the physical ramifications of their fights sometimes. But a lot of things I think I wanted to believe my mom as being the victim so bad that I convinced myself my dad was the bad guy, right? So as I now move forward into adulthood and I now have my first child, my mom is still kind of doing the same things, but now she's kind of putting these weird implications is what my brain thinks about my relationship with my son, my oldest son. So I'm like, you know, I don't know any better. I've never had a kid. There's that, you know, anybody who's had a kid at one point in their life understands the absolute fear that comes along with that and just unknowing. So a lot of things I kind of delegate to my mom, but then she's turning around and she's saying that I'm not capable of taking care of this kid. I'm doing all of this stuff. I have more children, right? I was engaged to my two oldest sons' father. My youngest son is by a different man. However, you know, life happens. So even with that, right? This man asked me to marry him. He asked her for my hand in marriage. And she was just like, well, what are you going to, she essentially, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly what she said, but she essentially told him, all you're going to do is end up leaving her anyway. And then just told me that all the things that I was pouring into this man at the time, I loved him. This was the father of my children. He was my fiance. You know, when he was at his low, I was right there with, what do you need me to do? I'm going to fill in. I'm going to pour into you. And I watched, you know, him grow from that, right? He flourished in his career and all of that stuff for me doing that. However, my mother took it as a thing that I'm pouring into a man who will never love me and who will leave me eventually. And that's essentially what happened, right? So move forward to, we finally get out of, I'm from Georgia, born and bred in Georgia. We finally get out of Georgia and we end up moving to Florida. And I was getting ready to start school. And one of the things that the lady I was talking to who had suggested to me before I started school, she was like, you know, I think a part of your schooling, you should go back. You should probably get therapy. And I was like, what? So I ended up going to therapy. So I ended up being in therapy for 6 years. And that, well, let me back up a little bit. I want to say I was not the greatest mother. You know, I didn't have the greatest relationship with my son's father, either one of them, right? But my feelings towards them wasn't disdain, it was hurt, right? And when you really think about it, a woman who has a disdain for the father of their children, is typically comes from a hurt place, right? They're not with me anymore. They should have been with me. I was the one. I'm the first baby mama. Like, that's a badge of honor. But anyway, so I was hurt, right? I was hurt. This was the man I thought I was going to marry. This was the man that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. There were a lot of things I didn't understand, right? I didn't look at it from his lived perspective in a relationship. I looked at it from my lived perspective in a relationship. I was the victim. I was the one who was hurt and aggrieved in this relationship. His feelings and his position and his perspective, I didn't care about. I didn't even think to consider it because I wasn't taught that. So when you think about that, as we're moving forward in life, you don't think that you're doing anything wrong, which is why even on the Queen's Code, I said, society had conditioned me, along with my mother, that women were always right. My feelings were valid, not his. So moving forward to when I started therapy, I went into the therapy session, and my therapist, he was a psychologist, had a very different way of treating me, right? So in my sessions, he would just say, "Tell me how your day was." And I would just prattle on, right? He wouldn't really ask questions unless I stopped or in my thoughts or whatever. And then it was just like, one day I was talking about my mother and a relationship with my son's father. And something hit me because I was sitting there. It's like you've just sat somewhere and you're just like talking to yourself. Like I would go into these sessions and essentially just talk to myself, right? And one day I was just having this conversation with myself, and I had said something, and I think I had said something like, well, he just never, and I stopped. And in that moment is when the turn happened for me. And I can't remember exactly what I was saying, but I can tell you what I realized. I had realized that I was the constant in all these relationships. I was the constant, right? So if I'm saying that this man was not a good man, my mother wasn't necessarily the best mom, then what is that saying about me, right? And I said, I'm not a victim, but I had lived in a victim mentality for so long, right? I was insecure. I had babies and all this other kind of stuff, right? I was the victim, right? Me. And I was just like, I'm not a victim. And in that moment, I had realized that I wasn't the only person that was harmed in these relationships. So was the other person. And then the other epiphany for me is that I've been talking shit about my children's father, who is a man, duh, and I have sons. So how do you make this make sense to your children to say in one breath you love them, but hate the man you created them with? And in that moment, I literally sat in that session and I bawled my eyes out because I'm like, I have sat here and essentially told my children I have a disdain for them, while also saying that I love them, while not thinking about the hypocrisy and the oxymoronicness of all of this. And it broke my heart because I thought about it from the perspective, now my children are getting older, right? They're getting to that age where they're liking girls and all this other kind of stuff. And I was like, but I've become the very thing I said I didn't want to be, right? I was the one causing harm. I would walk into a room. This is the other thing that flipped a switch for me as well. I walked into our living room. We lived in Florida. And I walked into the living room and I said, "Hey guys," and I started scratching my head. Every one of my children did like this. And I said, "Wait a minute. What is happening?" And I was like, "Why did y'all do that?" And my son said, "Well, I thought you was going to hit me." And I'm like, "Why would I hit you? I just came here like to ask them if they wanted something to eat or not." That broke my heart. Because what I used to say, man, I wish a woman would put her hands on my son. Man, I'll beat us. And I'm like, first of all, how are you going to say that when your children flinch when you walk in the room and just do this? Think about that. And it just that hurt my soul because I said, if some woman actually had went out here and put her hands on my son, I'll be hammed up somewhere in somebody county jail or federal, because you're not going to do that. But then I said, how can you feel that way when you are becoming the problem? You are the problem. You're setting the standard to the type of woman that these young men are going to be with. You are the foundation. You are the first woman that they'll ever be in a relationship with. And they're going to pattern every relationship thereafter, after your personality, your traits, your qualities, your all of this. And those are kind of the turning points and moments in my life that got me to look at things differently. The other one is my oldest son, they were cleaning up, and I had said, listen, y'all need to clean up. And I would give rapid fire directives. I need you to do this, and this, right? So as my middle son was cleaning out, he was unloading the dishwasher, and he dropped a plate and he broke it. And I was livid. I was just mad. So I go in there, I'm fussing. My oldest son came in there. He was like, how are you going? He said, first of all, you came in here. You're telling us to do all of this stuff. You're not giving us an opportunity to finish one thing before you tell us another thing. And now you in here yelling at him because he broke a plate. And these are just moments, these are moments that I'm having with my children. And I'm listening to them now, right? I didn't listen to them before, right? I would hear them. I tell people all the time, there's a difference between listening to someone and hearing someone. I would only hear them, right? I wasn't listening to them. I wasn't engaging with them to understand the things that their perception of me as their mom. I was only just doing, you're going to do what I tell you to do. And that's that. So that's kind of how, it was a grouping of years of me getting to that point where I said, okay, I have to look at things from a very different lived perspective. But also, I felt like my mom put me through it. My mom put me through a lot of things. So my recollection of when I really sat back and thought about it, my mother weaponized her motherhood and her womanhood, right? There were times I did nothing to my mom and she called the police on me. Why? To establish dominance, right? I'm gonna show you gonna do what I tell you to do, whether you think you're gonna do it or not. Who else did she do that to? My dad. My dad was cool, was a cool cucumber. I have a lot of good memories of my father. It was PBS on the weekends, watching Masterpiece Theater. It was puzzles. It was him. Oh, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine, because I just want to be able to so we can, because I appreciate all that, because so it's very unique, because as you heard me breaking it down, I didn't know any of those details, right? So I was getting a lot from what you were saying, but I didn't know if you were the woman in those positions. So the first thing I wanted to just ask you about, did anyone throughout your life or throughout your counseling talk to you about transference?
No, I don't even know what that is.
Okay, so transference is actually a psychodynamic construct. So this normally happens when people displace feelings, expectations. Then they also have relationship templates attached to them. And you experience the core mechanisms that make up this. One is nurturing mother, and the other one is an unavailable caregiver. So when you think back to your childhood, that's why I said, when I started to listen to you, the first thing that I could think of was her childhood has molded almost 90% of her thought process. And somewhere in there, you kind of let us know that you were able to shift kind of from your own recollection and going through therapy. With that being said, you went through having an unavailable caregiver. Your mom literally let you go. She literally let you go, but then that transference from somebody not being available for you, you became overly available for your children, right? So you became that nurturing mother that doesn't you ever seen the movie on Lifetime, Mother Dearest or Mama Dearest, whatever that was on Lifetime?
Oh yeah, I watched Mommy Dearest a long time ago.
Yeah. So you could become like that mom that you're thinking now that I have to do all these things to overcompensate for the things that I don't want my children to witness, but then they still do it. In the Black society, we call this generational curses, but we actually need to teach our children the actual mental health terms so that they can better understand what's going on, because transference can go on through so many different elements of your life. And that's what you experience. You experience an unavailable caregiver who didn't want you. And then you also started to almost fault yourself for being the common denominator. Even though the common denominator is what shifted you, it wasn't the right shift, but it still got you in the right place. It's like driving a car right and never driving a stick for the first time. You might make some wrong moves, but that doesn't mean you're going to stall out, right? So you were able to make some shifts. They weren't always the right shifts, but you didn't stall out. It grew you over time. But initially, instead of blaming yourself as the common denominator, you should have broke down, okay, what does nurturing look like for me as a mother now? Okay, what does being an available caregiver looks like for me? But in those moments, that energy just transfers over. And we experience this a lot, especially in the African-American homes, because like you said, you have great memories of your father going up into 8 years old. And now that makes sense to me, because within your shift, you started to realize, okay, it wasn't him all the time. Even though he did have his substance use and his own flaws, you still got to experience majority of your childhood, which is like those important phases. You were 8 years old. So you got to think about it. We remember most stuff from like what, 5 to 7. Like, you people have very vivid memories from those times. You probably could sit down and tell me everything that happened to you from 7 to 8, like very vividly. And I don't think people understand that. So I just want to say again, when you start to think about life, I think it's awesome where you are currently, because I'm telling you, I'm interested to hear, continue to hear, like, how did you make this shift? Because you made a shift with a lot of transference going through you and a lot of negative things coming towards your way. And you even said, what was funny, what you just said, you said your mother tried to establish dominance, but you also told us on the live that men should establish dominance. So what does so now I want to ask you, what does dominance from a man when he's leading appropriately look like? Because I want you to be able to articulate what you're saying, because people might hear it a certain way, but you probably have a different way that you articulate it. So what does dominance look like in a man who is leading properly?
Okay, so when I say dominance is one of those, it's semantics, right? Okay, I'm just going to explain it this way. For me, when I say a man should leadership, to me is a form of dominance, right? It is not egregious. I must say that. So for me, as a woman who's head of the household for all of her children's life, essentially, there are just certain things I don't want to pick, if that makes sense. If you're going to take me out to dinner, take me out to dinner, right? If I'm busy with work and you come in and you say, hey, listen, I left you a sandwich in there. I got your gas in your car. I saw it was at E or whatever. Stuff like that. Take something off the plate that I don't have to think about, right? Because I'm so used to making these decisions. And if you allowed me the space to continue to make them, I am. And unfortunately, I am just going to be like, he's now my child. And it's in so many ways in my brain, because I've had to make those decisions throughout their life, right? And it's not, I will respect him as a man, but I feel like if I have to make these decisions, if you're going to ask me what you want to eat or where you want to go, I'm going to be like, well, if you're going to ask me, hell, I should have just planned it. So for me, that's what that is, right? Leadership is just coming in and stating the thing, doing the thing without me having to ask you for it. Now, I know there's, in some instances, I will have to do that, right? I will have to ask you for things because you're not going to know everything I might need at that moment. So there are things I understand I'm going to have to ask you, right? That I need, hey, can you go get this for me? I forgot, whatever. But the things that I think that are just everyday, like, hey, we're cohabitating, we're in the same home, then yeah, I would expect you to pay bills, right? Or at least we have an understanding of what, if you explain to me, listen, I need you to take care of this, this, and this, cool. Give me my directives up front. You take care of lights, water, gas. You got it. No problem. Every month. Everything else I got. That's what I'm talking about when I say leadership. There's just certain decisions that I'm going to need you just to do. Food, dinner, bills, responsibilities, all just certain things I'm going to expect you to just understand it needs to be done. Because if you leave it up, if you don't do it and I have to do it, then now I'm back in that mode of survival, if you will, right? I'm going to question your ability to lead, right? Does that make sense?
It does. So this is amazing. So now I have a follow up question for that. So now that I hear what you're saying, I have two questions for you. The first one I would like you to answer, and this is more for the women. How does Sonny, what threshold does Sonny put on leadership or the man having dominance or taking control before it becomes a negative thing? And then secondly, why do you feel that just because a man doesn't make certain decisions, he's not a healthy leader or leading properly? Because I heard you say a key word, and again, this is your opportunity. I'm giving you opportunity to be able to speak because I don't want to speak for you. But I also heard you say you wanted that man to take things off of your table that you were normally used to doing. So we have to establish correct boundaries, right? Because that man probably came from a relationship where he doesn't want to do vice versa, right? He might came from a relationship or a marriage where the woman did go ahead and cook dinner, you know what I mean? Go ahead and make the plans for vacations. And because I'm that way. Like if there's a woman in my life, I want you to take the same stresses off of me, right? If you say you want to go on vacation, I'm the money. So if you want to go plan it, let me know what day I need to take off, and I'm good. Like I don't care about what boat we gonna ride on. I don't care about what hotel we gonna be in, because I'm doing this because it makes you happy, not because I want to go anyway. I'm just going because you're planning the trip for the family. So where does Sonny create that threshold to know, one, when does the dominance or leadership becomes overwhelming or that man is taking advantage of it? And two, is there a way for a man to not take things off of your plate, but also you can see him as a leader?
Okay. So for me, I think everything is about a conversation, right? I understand that we're gonna have to have this conversation, and I'm going to kind of like, I don't want to say feel it out, but I am going to be observant enough to see, okay, where does he need me to fit and where I need him to fit, right? And if he's like, listen, like you're saying, if he's like, listen, I, I don't do vacation, I don't want to do none of that. Tell me where we going, pick the flight, get all that. That's not a problem to me, right? For me, exactly, Black Mona, communication. For me, when it becomes too much is when, okay, so when does leadership?
You don't have to pick I'm not going to pick apart everything you say. So you can just
No. I'm really trying to think about this because, to be honest with you, I never really thought about it, but now that I have to think about it. Like, it's like, okay, let me think about this. I think for me, when the dominance feels like you're now threatened, or I feel like you have now, it's more of it then becomes that negative dominance. And it's like, I'm intimidated by you, by something you did or something you said. And instead of me just expressing my frustration with what you said or did, you are now like I'm gonna show you. So I think that's where it kind of, for me, and that may not even be in the right context, but I think that's where it becomes problematic for me, right? Like, in your leadership, you feel as though I have to accept everything you say without question, right? Like, if I just say, hey, well, can you just kind of explain that for me? And it's like, you don't get to question me. And it's like, well, wait a minute. We have a problem, right? So that's where I kind of draw the line, and where I feel like it skates on a very thin line of you're now getting over into a negative side of, leadership or dominance.
Okay. So in your words, do you really want leadership or do you want a partnership? Because if I can't make, if I'm coming in and you're telling me that you would like me to take some things off your plate, and I take that on, we communicate about it, and I start to make decisions, and I get frustrated when you're asking me questions about it now, it's almost like, well, you should have just did it yourself. So do you want more of a partnership where the man kind of has the final say ultimately, or are you really looking for leadership? Because we all know leadership, there's so many different forms of leadership, right? So like you can look at leadership as a steward leadership, you can look at it as a very like dominant leadership, like a servant leadership. Like there's so many different forms of leadership. So depending on the man, you almost would have to communicate that in a like almost overly communicate it. And Lisa said, why can't there be leadership within partnership? I think that kind of contradicts itself though.
You think so? Because I was about to say both. A part of me wants him to there are things that I just need him to do, right? And then there are things that I feel like we will, but I think I don't want to say it's the same, but I think that there are similarities that cross over. Like there's just certain things, like I said, if we have a conversation, right? And we're talking about how to manage this household, right? He takes care of, let's say he says, I'll take care of all the bills, and you just take care of maintaining the house itself, right? Making the house into a home. I got it, right? If he's saying, okay, I'm going to go off and make a decision, and he's asking me about it, or I say, hey, well, what about, and I say, well, if I question, like, not necessarily to question the decision he's making, but I just question the why. I just want to understand the why. I don't, it's just for me to get a better understanding, right? So that I can understand what I may need to do in that particular situation, not to necessarily question his leadership and the decision, the choice he's going to make. Just where do I fit? What do you need me to do to make this thing happen, if you will?
So I actually looked this up because I think these type of conversations go very well when we actually are able to like get the verbiage that goes with it. So the core orientation of partnership versus leadership. So when it comes to the dimension of power, partnership means we share the power. Leadership means the power is centralized. That means it's with one person ultimately. Next, you have the authority. In a partnership, you distribute the authority. In leadership, it's a designated authoritative person or authority. The next one says decision flow. In a partnership, we collaborate. It's collaborative. In a leadership, it's directed. And then next, it says accountability. In a partnership, accountability is mutual, both 50-50. In a leadership, ultimately, it rests on the leader itself. And then last, emotional tone. It says a partnership is equity, and then leadership is responsibility. So that's why I feel like when you really break down the definition, you can't have both. It's a very dangerous line that we start to cross when we think we can have two things that aren't the same. We can't be partners and share power, but then you telling me I'm a leader, but I'm supposed to have the centralized power. Like I'm the designated authority if I'm the leader. So I think more when people want partnership. That's just my opinion after reading that. I think people want partnerships. We might look at, women, I'm gonna say women, most women, not all guys, most women want partnership, but want everything to fall on the man as if he's the leader. It's literally, I'll share the screen too so that people can see what I'm saying, because I don't want people to think I'm just making up stuff for the world to relate here. So like this is right here. So like this is literally the flow of partnership versus leadership. So I would say it's very difficult to have both. Because if the woman really wants the man to literally take on, because this is what you're really asking, right? As a wife or a partner, you want your husband to have the take on the responsibility. You want ultimately things to rest on him as him being the leader. You said earlier you would like him to direct and kind of be, hey, let's get this done, let's do this. He is the centralized power. I think it's a real, I think Lisa was right. I think you were right. Communication is what has to happen. But I think more relationships need to break down these two roles first to dictate what do we really want our home to look like. Because leadership to me reads gender roles. Partnership reads modern dating. That's what I get from it. I could be wrong. This is just how I perceive it. But I look at partnership as what women and men are looking for today in modern dating. And I think gender roles goes back to leadership. Because when you do gender roles, now Miss Sunny can have centralized power, right? When it comes to parenting, mothering. She can designate her authority when it comes to taking care of the kids, making sure the teachers are treating our kids right. You can direct the decision flow in the children's life. You can take accountability that rests on you as being the leader, as the mom, like we used to see a lot in in olden times. Like I know for myself, my mom always stopped working every time she got pregnant. My dad would not let her work. She literally raised all of us until we were 5 years old to get into pre-K or school. And then she went back to doing what she was doing. And I think those are the type of things that like we're currently missing today. Like we're missing what roles really look like. And we're kind of just putting words where we want to fill in the margin, if that makes sense.
I don't disagree with that. I can see why you would say that. I think for me, I think still that I still want somebody to lead my household, right? Like I said, the dynamics might be a little bit different now. I don't mind a man leading, right? I don't mind that. Here's where I wanted to ask this question the last panel, so I'll ask it now. So as a woman who has done this, I'm trying to get my words together and I'm trying not to prattle on, is that I will say this, as a woman, I have to trust in your leadership. I can't follow you blindly. And I think what I have run into is that a lot of men want you to respect them as a leader simply because they're men. Not anything else. They haven't done the thing to make you believe in their leadership. And I think for me, something as simple as setting up a date or taking me out to dinner is not complicated, right? Not to me, right? I'm not saying that it's not for a man, it wouldn't be a bit of a stress because you don't know what I like, all this other kind of stuff. However, I believe if you ask the right questions, right? Just like you said, I want to ask these open-ended questions. You'll get me to tell you whatever you want to know. What kind of food you like? Ooh, let me tell you about steak, right? So you can figure out my likes and my wants just simply by communicating well, asking the right questions. So therefore, you get to now say, okay, well, I know she likes steak and burgers and vegan. She'll eat anything at this point. So my options are wide open. So the question now is what do you choose, right? Or do I just go off and just ask her? I know it sounds I don't know how it sounds, but for me, if you can't pick dinner or a place for us to go and have our first date to sit and get to know each other, what happens when you have to make larger decisions, complex decisions, difficult decisions, right? You can't pick dinner. And now you want me to sit here and believe that some difficulty comes up and you're going to be able to handle that? I know the correlation might seem wild, but that's just what I'm saying. That's, for me, lead, right? I know what that looks like. I've had to do it. I know what that feels like. I've had to do it, right? I didn't ask my kids permission. Hey, what do y'all think about this? They were like, what? I just did. I had to do it. So now if that man comes into my life and he says, I want you to, I want you to follow my lead. Okay, show me what you got. So I still look at it as leadership, right? And I think this is kind of twofold, because leadership for a man looks very differently than leadership for a woman, right? If I understand what my leadership looks like as a woman, the children, the nurturing, the household, the food, all of this, then he should kind of understand that leadership as a man, which is, to Black Mona's point, I can see why it looks like a partnership on that level, right? Because if you understand your roles in this dynamic, then you'll understand that these things are similar, but they just look different because a man is doing his thing and a woman is doing her thing. I'll land with that.
Okay. And I think it's unique. So I'm not pushing back on you or Mona, Lisa, but with that being said, I don't think they intertwine if we get back to gender roles. You see what I mean? Because I'm not asking, Sonny's not going to ask Souls to go pick up the kids. That's your job. You see what I mean? Like, I'm never going to intertwine that. So I'm out here making the bread, and everything else that you're supposed to be doing, you should be figuring it out. I feel like we have started to intertwine roles because everybody wants to accommodate the next person instead of allowing that man. Because like, I grew up in a 2-parent household. I tell people I grew up in a home where I didn't hear it. I never see my dad yell. I never see my mom yell. I never see anybody raise their voice. But I also seen actions very loudly, right? Like, no matter what my mom did, it didn't matter what job she had. When my mom was working at a school, cleaning schools at night, my mom would get home at 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and she still brought the pine saw out and mopped the whole house. She washed my dad's scrubs so he can get them ironed and go to work. Like, my mom's role never changed because of her responsibilities that she had in addition to what life looks like. I think in today's time, everybody wants to intertwine, and then now we think we have a partnership. No, Sonny, you go pick up the kids. Maybe you need to develop a carpool thing or get you some girlfriends so that you're not bothering Souls to go get the kids, because Souls might stay over work longer. I might pick up some extra hours because I know Sonny said she's trying to go to Florida with the kids next month. So like, as a man, I should never have to think about those little small things that we are now intertwining into life. Like, I tell people all the time, like, my dad will be in the stands in the first quarter of my football games, and then look at the halftime, he was gone, right? He went back to the hospital. He had different shifts. Nothing was intertwined. Like, my mom still made sure we got picked up from the games. And I really feel that a lot of people don't like it, but you have to get back to gender roles. No one likes that anymore. If you want to be an independent woman and still work and have your career, just know that once you get children, you're going to have to add them into the equation, and women can do it because you can do it when you're single. So why not do it when you're married? Because women, you guys are superwoman when you're single. And then you get a man and you think the man should now intertwine with the responsibilities of what's supposed to go on. And like, I'm telling you, this is just how I grew up. Like, literally, like, if you go to my family right now in Louisiana, my grandmother and them will look at you like you're crazy if a man is making his own plate. Like, men don't move in our family. Like, the men sit down. You know what I mean? It's a woman serving everybody. Uncle Plug got to go visit my family in Louisiana. He's seen it. The men sit down. The men, because the men already did their job. They barbecued for the holiday. They did all the man stuff. And now the women need to prepare everything else. Like the men ain't doing nothing else. You know what I mean? And then when you get kids, as they get older, they now can intertwine and help mom out a little bit more, right? Taking the trash out, putting the trash out in front of the house, like those type of things. I just feel that we don't like how it sounds. It sounds very sexist to people. But I grew up in a home where it was very successful. You got it, Miss Sunny.
Oh, sorry. It was a little bit of a delay. Yeah, you're right. I don't disagree with you on that. It does sound very sexist. It does sound very, oh my God. Oh, what do you mean he has to do this? And let me tell you something, as a single parent, I was no superwoman, right? And I've stated this in the last panel. It is not a glorious thing, right? I'm not gonna sit here and glorify my singledom and parenthood. As a woman, I am functioning, doing what I had to do. I'm completely functioning outside of what nature dictated I should be. I should not have been heading my household. I should not have been the run, going to work, going to school, doing all of this stuff, because what I realize is that you're going to compromise something. And part of what I had to compromise was being able to actually raise and nurture my children fully, right? You have to compromise something. I didn't get to rest in my femininity. I had to be the man. I had to go out and work. I had to go out and deal with these things. I had to take the car to the shop when it was broke. I had to go, you know what I mean? There was no man. When I say I was single, it is not a figurative thing. It was literal. Okay, I went out and worked 2 jobs. I was in school full time. I had to do all of that stuff. I had to work when I had to provide all of these things. You don't get to rest on your laurels and say, oh, I want to take a break. No, when I took a break, it was exhausted in my room drinking Red Bulls at night, trying to get through a paper, and then crime. I'm telling you, it is not a glorious thing living in that, existing and doing that thing in a space. It is not glorious, right? I don't know. I wasn't superwoman. My sons thought I was. They never missed a meal, never had a light cut off. Now, I did have homelessness twice with my children. That never happened again. But I'm telling you something. It is not if we were meant to do it by ourselves, we would have made them by ourselves. We would all be asexual. We wouldn't have this problem. Because you created it by yourself, you can do it by yourself, right? I didn't make these babies by myself. So therefore, God clearly intended for us to do this together. We can't make them by ourselves. So he clearly intended for us to do that. I just wanted to point that out. But no. Leadership in a household is important for me. Even at this point in my life, that's important for me, right? Because I want to have a space to cook and clean and do all of these things that people are like, why are you doing all of that? I love to cook. I'm not, Chef Boyardee, but I can make it happen, right? Ain't nobody died from my cooking. But there are just things I want to continue to be able to create a space in my home that when my man comes home, there is a cooked meal. It's clean. It smells good. Hey, baby, your video game up. I want to be able to do that. Why? Because he has spent his entire day, and God knows what that looked like and what that felt like and what that experience was like for him, so that he can come home and be at peace, right? And if he don't want to be bothered with me for 15 minutes, I'm going to give him that space. I want to be able to do that. I want to create the peace the world will not give him, right? So I get in modern age, it's a partnership, right? Oh, well, my wife got to work. I got to go work. We'll partner off and do these things. And I feel like if that's what works for you, that's what works. But I feel like if you're asking for a man to step into leadership positions, you have to allow him to be that. He needs to take that on without hesitation, right? And take the good, with the bad of that, with being a leader. But I also wanted to say too, kind of going back, the thing that I learned, the biggest thing that I learned in all of this was accountability, right? Accountability for the things I did. It doesn't take away the harm that other people in the relationships that I had over time did to me. But I also just had to learn that I was still responsible. I accepted the poor behavior. So therefore, that's on me, right? He showed me that he was gonna pinch me in the morning if I did a thing, right? And I stayed it, but I kept letting him pinch me. And I can't get mad at him because he pinched me. I stayed and let him pinch me. I didn't create that boundary. So I just kind of wanted to say that, as well as that, out of all of this, out of everything that I went through, I learned about accountability, right? I learned that just because I did a thing wrong doesn't make me always wrong, right? That moment was wrong, but I learned from it. I changed the behavior and I moved forward. And I think that was just one of the things to understand in all of this. I'm hushing.
No, you're fine, Miss Sonny. And I want to answer Lisa. So Lisa said, what is marriage if you're not working together? So I think the best way to answer this question is to give examples, because I think sometimes when we try to answer, maybe it doesn't make sense. But the way I would answer this is a sports analogy, right? When the defense is on the field, the defense is playing defense. They're not playing offense at the same time. But the defense still works in conjunction with the team to win, because they have to stop, get the ball back for the offense. It's the same thing in gender roles. Working together doesn't mean that you have to intertwine responsibilities. And I think that's what people are getting these words misconstrued in this modern day of marriage and relationships. And no, we can still work together, but that doesn't mean I need to take on your responsibility. We're not asking the quarterback to go out there and kick the ball through the uprights. We got a field goal kicker to do that. They don't cross responsibilities, but they still work together to get a W and get a win. It's the same thing with marriage. I don't know why we started to overcomplicate life because we put the word marriage in it. Everything that we experience, and this is something we talk about a lot in mental health. When we used to talk to patients, I used to always tell my clients, if you had a magic wand, what would life look like for you? And it was never realistic, because we start to we overthink now. Everybody's really so deep, and like, no, it's very common sense. I'm on the field playing defense, and my goal is to get the ball back for the offense, but they don't intertwine. They're never on the field at the same time. You never seen that in life. You never seen the defense and offense running together at the same time on the field in a football game. It's like that in basketball, right? You go from offense to defense. You can't play offense and defense in basketball at the same time. So I don't understand why we get to the marriage and think that this is so complex. You can work together with not being together. That's where the gender roles come in. If Sonny knows every day she needs to be off whatever job she chooses, she knows she needs to be off by 2:30, and that man is leading by making sure that he's making enough money that Sonny can work that part-time job just to keep herself busy, but she got to be off at 2:30 to go get them kids, we're working together. I'm just not going to get the kids. Why should I have to stop with her? And I think that's another thing, because like, my mom was very intelligent. My mom was very talented. She was very artistic. She could draw, everything. My mom left all her gifts behind to be a mother. And that's what life looks like when you get married. When you allow a man to truly lead, you will see it. Like, everybody in the RSC got to meet my father. He came to Chicago for our first live show. So like, my dad talks about this stuff. My dad is very, very old school, like very, very old school. And it's like one of those things that like, he led by example. You know what I mean? That means he got to work a few more hours so that my mom didn't have to go to work while she was raising me, the baby son, until I was 5, right? That's 5 years that my dad had to work more overtime. We seen him less, but they worked together so that my mom didn't have to worry about the stressors of, are we still going to be able to maintain the life we wanted? Like, my dad tells everybody, the only reason I bought a house because your mama wanted a house. Like, my dad did whatever she wanted. He provided whatever she wanted, what her hearts could desire, but they had to still work together, but they didn't intertwine responsibilities. It just never happened. So it's just one of those things that that like, and I know we finna start getting these, like, I don't think it's just about marriage though. Like, and these are the things that, like, I think this is what makes life very difficult for men, is because it doesn't matter even if we give you a, how can I lead if I gave you a correct answer and it's still not good enough? What if Sonny is sick and she can't go get the kids because she's not capable? Sonny got her friend group. Sonny has a backup plan. What if her husband was working out of state? Sonny would have a backup plan. Like, women are, and this is me almost saying, I think women don't give other women enough roses. Like, I think women are very intelligent. I think women know exactly how to make a backup plan. I don't think women are sitting around thinking that plan A is always going to be plan A. That just means that doesn't mean that it has to entertain me. You know, and that's why I said at the very beginning of the conversation, maybe Sonny gets in a carpool group. Maybe she gets a good set of friends that all our kids go to the same school. So if I'm sick, now I'm making the call in the morning. Sonny's making the call in the morning to let Cassandra know, hey, girl, can you come get my kids? I'm not feeling well today. Because that's what real communication looks like, right? We have lost the whole concept of what it takes a village to raise a child. We lost that concept too. Like, we're only focusing on the relationship, but we also have lost the whole picture of what community looks like. And that's really the issue too. Like, the community has broken down in the midst of the family home breaking down. Because I know there was millions of times that my mom took me and my friends all to school if we missed the bus. Like, there's been multiple trips like that. My mom would pick up everybody, or you can come over our house and eat dinner until your mom can get off of work to come get you from our house. Like, these are things that we don't have to overthink. I think we just try to make excuses to make our side sound better. Like, no, you got to work together. No, you don't. You still, I give women all full capability that they can do it. Her man or her husband got to go get them kids. No, they don't. I just gave you 13 ways that man never has to step in. And I know that's not going to be agreeable to probably 90% of women today. But I think most women who really are seeking love, I think it looks different for people. I think it looks different from a woman who's fed up and tired of doing everything on her own. She'll start to understand what leadership looks like. There's nowhere you can go in a workplace where the CEO is down there doing things. The CEO is not telling the bottom of the totem pole person when they're coming to work or running scheduling. They have people for these positions. But again, they don't work together. They work separately to all get to the same goal. So it's just one of those things, though. But before we end tonight, Miss Sonny, is there anything that you would like to tell the fans that we have at the Raw Society? Oh, before you do that, Miss Sonny, one second. I forgot. My boy Classic, man. We got to play music. Classic did send a cash money tonight. So where we at?
Are you making another beat, Daddy? And Genius is my dad.
Classic. Oh, we talk about money?
Good money. Let's talk about it.
My money look different now. When I talk about 50,
Used to be $50.
I'm talking about 50,000. Gotta move a little different.
Yeah.
My maneuvers is in and out. Ain't trying to get spotted.
At all.
Too introvert to be in the crowd.
Real life.
I'm low key at the Coach store buying plain Janes, no logos. When you spend as much time on the boat as I do, you ain't really got a showboat.
Real life.
I got my own brand, wear my own clothes. You would swear to God I got it out of Soho. I had a baddie, made me think about a ring, but I seen.
Thank you to Classic for the $5 super chat. He said for the first episode, all prayers, all muscle, RSC is to the top. Yeah, we're trying to continue to keep bringing different forms of content so that we're not looking like every channel that you see on YouTube. And hopefully we continue to grow this Sessions with Souls. We're going to bring more and more issues up. Who knows? Miss Sunny might become a regular on Sessions with Souls on Sundays if she would like. But yeah, so is there anything that you would like to leave everybody with so that you can kind of accommodate like your thoughts about everything?
Yeah, so I would just like to say again, thank you so much for having me up. And the thing that I would like to always stress people, especially when it comes to relationships, always is and especially your romantic relationships. I think relationships in general operate and kind of function on the same wavelength. You just function different. Anyway, I'm not even gonna get into all of that. I'm just going to say this. Understand when you get into relationships, understand what you need versus what you want, right? If you want, just understand you don't need the want, right? You need the need. Understand what it is you need. And I say that to say, like, when you asked me about my sons when they started dating multiple people, I think in that they learned what they needed versus what they wanted. It wasn't, and it's not always about the physical side of it, but I think that's just very important. And I think the other important thing that I want to leave people with is you're not the victim all the time. You are a victim of your choices. You're a victim of your circumstances, but you have the opportunities and the ability to change that, right? Just understand you have to be responsible for what happens to you, no matter how egregious it is. It doesn't take away the thing that happened to you that harmed you physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, or even financially. You just have to understand what you did that took you to that place, and then you just have to do differently, right? Words is cheap. Actions speak volumes. So if you want something in life, you have to change the things you're doing versus just talking about them. And now land with that.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Miss Sunny. I'm going to play the outtake of what Sessions with Souls is all about, and then we're going to close out tonight. I appreciate all you guys. Lisa said, Sunny, thank you for sharing. We definitely appreciate it. So we're going to give you guys a closing loop of what Session with Souls is all about, and then we're going to close out today's show. Thank you again, Miss Sunny.
Welcome to Sessions with Souls. This is the space where we take content from emotional triage to critical diagnosis, where we slow things down, examine the symptoms, challenge the narratives, and unpack what's really being said and why it's being received the way it is. This isn't therapy. This isn't clinical advice. These are my perspectives, my professional lens, my lived experience, and my honest observations. Here, we don't react. We assess. We interpret. We contextualize. Because content doesn't exist in isolation. It lives inside culture, emotion, bias, and intention. So settle in and rest in the peace of knowing. Content always has context. Let's begin the session.
Why you ain't say nothing? I'm only gonna do this once. You always knew I'd make it from the beginning. Why you ain't say nothing? You believed in me the whole time? Yeah. I couldn't tell. You was around me from the beginning. Why you ain't say nothing? Why you ain't say nothing? Seen them hard times, couldn't kill me. Why you ain't say nothing? Why you ain't say nothing? Stages on moon getting bigger. Now you wanna say something. But watching my story, y'all winning. Why you ain't say nothing? Why you ain't say nothing? Why you ain't say nothing? Why you ain't call? Why you ain't say nothing? Why you ain't say nothing? Why you ain't? You was around me from the beginning. Why you ain't say nothing? Why you ain't? Stages on moon getting bigger. Now you wanna say something. Put that on my